Exclusive leaked policy exposes Fox News' stance on woke ideology. So, of course, the big story, Tucker Carlson gets ousted. Several reports have said he got the boot because it was part of the Dominion settlement. But Dan, you had a show there, a huge show. So I don't know if you have any insights into this, but I'll just say outright, this is like a big exclusive where apparently now people are coming up from Fox News saying inside the company, it is woke. It is very lefty. I think the obvious thing is you're in New York City. You got New York City laws. Yeah. These laws are pretty broad. And I'm going to get into the heaviness of these laws, but I'm curious, your experience at Fox News, you go from politics, then you're into, radio, now your personality, now you've got a show on Fox News. Did you see any of this woke stuff there?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was real. Now, here's the thing. I didn't work in Fox in New York. I had my own studio in Florida. And I got to tell you, Fox never did me wrong. Like, we would fight about a lot of stuff. And, I said I was talking to Megyn Kelly about this last week. But it wasn't anything unusual you wouldn't see on his show. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, don't cover that topic. I said often, like, they never told me what to talk about because I just would have talked about it anyway. I mean, there's a reason. But I didn't use a prompter on a lot of my segments. Some of them we did, but that doesn't happen at Fox. Like almost nobody. I think there's one host. I don't think Cavuto uses a prompter, but it's for different reasons. But almost nobody goes without a prompter. Matter of fact, I had Jesse on as a guest one day in New York. Rarely I would do my show from New York, like once or twice a quarter or something. And Jesse came in and I did this big like rant, and he's looking at a prompter and it just says like, Dan ad-lib. And I go on. And he's like, dude, you did that out of your head? And he's like, well, how'd you hit the mark and stuff? I said, I'm used to it with talk radio, like we did our thing. So no one ever told me what to say because I wouldn't have listened anyway. But here's the thing, like Tim brings up a point because it's hard. I know it's easy to, pile on. And if anybody has a reason to be angry with everything going on, it's me. I was there. I'm pissed about what happened. I am. I would, the relationship there, I put a lot of time into. But he's not wrong. I mean, forget this stuff for a second. I'll get to that. I'm not trying to avoid it, but I'll give you a perfect example. The vaccine thing. They did everything they can with me to make it easy for people to not get canned with the mandate. But they were in New York. Like they would have shut the building down. I lived that. They did everything they could to make sure nobody got canned. Like, okay, you're going to do this and you're going to do remote stuff. All right, would I like them to like punch him in the face in New York and say, this is stupid, we're not doing it? Yeah, but with this is different. I mean, this is kind of like, I read the story. Looks like they really went overboard with this. You got to remember, you got a lot of serious conservatives there. How are they going to feel? Say you're a female conservative host there, which they have a few. You're popping in a bathroom and a guy walks in? How's that going to go down there? Have they thought this through?
Has Fox News considered maybe leaving New York?
They should. I mean, listen, after the Tucker thing, they've got bigger problems. I mean, I'm not sure. A lot of people linked their book. This is a great. Can I read something to you? It's quick, I promise. I hate when people read stuff. But someone gave this up to Breitbart, and this kind of explains it all. They said, because this is kind of accurate. They're talking about why me and Tucker weren't re-signed. And some source told them, this is from a Matt Boyle piece, that Bongino and Carlson, one source said, were considered the two most likely to say, fuck you to management. It's right here. A network insider said, adding that Bongino gave 0 fucks and Tucker gave even less fucks. So that's kind of true. That's why, like, I'm not furious at them because I wasn't the easiest guy to work with. I'm not going to mess.
How did it end? You were just doing it, and then they fired you?
No. So the show was number one. I mean, demo and overall. You can't get higher number one. Like we were rocking it, man. We were pulling in killer numbers. Even we were at 10 and at 9 at both spots, and they wanted to re-sign for about 6 months. And I don't have an agent. I do my own deals always. I don't need it. I like my own stuff. So I was the one doing all the negotiating. There was never a question they wanted to show ever. And then about 2 weeks out, but at the end of the contract was I think April 30th or whatever. I don't remember off the top of my head. But about 2 weeks out, I noticed like the tone changed completely. And I don't know what happened. I at that point I wanted to re-up for a year. And I said, let's just punt this down the road and let's re-up for a year. And then, I don't know, it just seemed like they weren't interested. But, you know, the people I was dealing with there, they were genuine with me. Like, they never bullshitted me at all. No one ever said to me something that didn't happen. So I can't sit here and say, like, you know, again, it's easy for me to pile on. And I have no reason. I don't work there. I'm probably never going to work there again. I may never do a hit again on Fox. But I'm not going to tell anybody fairy tales that aren't true, because that's like short-run clickbait stuff. But in the long run, it dings your credibility. Now, the Tucker story, it's got some angles to it, you know. So I don't know if something happened last minute that post-Dominion where they were like, let's just clean house and get rid of these two. I don't know that. But, you know, things did change the last 2 weeks.
So here's the interesting thing about this leaked policy exposing Fox News' stance on woke ideology. They say things that I think are kind of obvious, considering Fox is based in New York City, that your gender identity is protected, whether or not it conforms. This is New York City and state law, I'm pretty sure. And I've long talked about how the laws in New York City open the door for a major, major problem if anyone actually chooses to put it to the test. So in the Daily Signal article, they actually link to the New York City Commission on Human Rights definitions. They say gender expression is the representation of gender as expressed through one's name, pronouns, clothing, hairstyle, behavior, voice, or similar characteristics. Gender expression may or may not conform to gender stereotypes, norms, and expectations in a given culture or historical period. It actually says that, meaning if you put on a safari costume from the 1800s and call yourself the Colonel with a fake beard, that is quite literally what they're referring to. Historical period? You can dress up like a pirate. They wouldn't put historical period as protected unless they expected people to dress up like colonial era pirates.
You cannot run a conservative company out of New York City. You cannot. There is no way. You realize this was the intention of the left hijacking corporate America too, right? You know, HRC and the DEI, that were like, I call it the DI stuff.
The ESG stuff.
Because they want you to violate your own core tenet principles, which does what? It obviously alienates you from the core audience that funds you. By the way, my producer Guy downstairs watching the chat.
What up, Guy?
He says, the chat's convinced you're on drugs. They're not used to the energy. I am not on any professional narcotics.
He didn't even have any of our coffee.
I didn't even have any of the coffee. This is my natural state of being.
Here's what I want to say about the law in New York City, though, because I think we need some strong people at Fox News. If there's anywhere that would be willing to test the limits of these laws, it's someone who works at Fox News, who understands this is going too far. If you work at Fox News, you can put on a full wolf fursuit, tell your boss your name is Vociferon, Herald of the Winter Mists, and your pronouns are Lord Vociferon and Lord Vociferons. And if they don't use it, they're in violation of the law. Now, as I've mentioned before, I've talked to lawyers about this in New York who said you'll be laughed out of the courtroom. Why would the law say historical period? Fine. Show up to Fox as an on-air contributor dressed like a pirate with an eye patch and go, "Yar, thanks for having me on the air, matey." And if they have a problem with it and tell you can't go on, to say, if you don't let me go on, I will file a complaint with the Commission on Human Rights in New York City for violation of their human rights law. Let's see how quickly Fox News bends over backwards. Here's what I want to see. Will Fox News at that point say, we cannot allow people to show up dressed like pirates? Or I mean, it says anything.
Caveman.
You could dress up like with a Roman in a toga, and then go on the air. If they bar you from going on the air, they're in violation of the law. Now, go before a judge and say, Your Honor, this is how I express my gender as someone who's non-binary, and it says in the law, historical period is explicitly protected. No judge is going to be able to laugh you out. There's no other interpretation of that.
It all depends on the judge.
Sure, but if the law itself says historical period. Now, look, when I first read this law back in 2019, I said, what would happen? I called a bunch of human rights lawyers in New York and said, what would happen if I went in dressed like a wolf or something and said I was Vociferon? They said, they'd still fire you, kick you out. And when you go to a judge, they'll say, we know what the intent of the law is, and this is not it. And they will laugh you out of the courtroom. And I said, if a judge has the right to laugh at me for the way I dress, why not a man dressed like a woman? And they're like, well, I mean, the purpose of the law and the intent is, and I was like, okay, so there could be a judge who just says no. This is different. This law explicitly says historical period. That means if you go before a judge dressed like a pirate and say, it says historical period, and this makes me feel the most comfortable and confident in my gender, why can't I dress up like a busty female pirate from the 1700s with an eye patch? and a fake peg
like Keira Knightley from Pirates.
Exactly, absolutely.
Or a nudist.
And if the judge says,
Right.
When's that
I
gonna happen?
reject this historical period clothing, which clearly falls in line, then the law is basically meaningless. But I'm curious, because I'll tell you this, if it were me and I worked at Fox News and this story came out, I would show up the next day dressed like a pirate. And I would get like legit Hollywood production quality pirate costume. And I'd be like, I am going on the air dressed like a pirate, talking like this, yar, welcome to the news program. And if they had a problem with it, it's a violation of the law. Is Fox News at that point going, they're going to be presented with one of two scenarios. Destroy your audience, sacrifice your audience for the local New York City laws, or relocate.
You mentioned the New York City laws, and I think there's merit to that, but I do think that the ESG considerations from the investors and stuff, I think that has a significant amount of pressure put on them as well. So I think that the combination of the two is probably the most likely. Really.
But that part of the story puzzled me the most. That apparently they are pitching their high HRC score as like a net positive.
Yeah.
As a
the
conservative
investors.
network, that's like that's a stain on your network from that group.
But there's big investors that are like BlackRock and stuff like that. These investment firms and stuff like that have a significant effect on the direction of the corporation, because it opens opportunities if you play by their rules. So it may affect your bottom line, and you may lose, like Fox may lose viewers because of the woke stuff coming out. But like BlackRock and stuff like that
but I wonder
promise
with them,
opportunities in the future.
See, Fox's business model though is not what everybody thinks it is. Most of their money actually comes from carriage fees. Now, advertising is obviously a good chunk of it too, and they don't want to lose it. But the hard reality is, even though they were losing some money on Tucker's show due to boycotts and other stuff, Fox News was still generating a good chunk of change. I mean, they were not in any danger of going bankrupt or anything like that.
What are carriage fees?
Carriage fees are fees paid to a cable channel to be carried on like, say, Verizon, these cable packages. So because nobody will get cable without Fox, very few people, they get paid a certain amount of money for each user. So the problem Fox is going to have that's bigger than boycotts, ad boycotts, are cord cutters. Because if you're getting a carriage fee of whatever, say $1 a person, and there's 100 million people with cable, you got 100 million in the can before you sold a freaking ad. The problem is the cord cutting is speeding up. That's why when I decided I was going to do interviews after leaving Fox, I've only done 2, and they've both been new media. You guys and Megyn Kelly, because I am an avid supporter of new media. As this cord cutting picks up, shows like this, you have to understand, like, this is going to be a dumb box in the future, okay? They call it a smartphone. It's really a dumb box. It's going to be a transmission vehicle. People are going to want to watch Tim Pool. Tim Pool's going to be your 8 o'clock guy, whatever. Tim Pool's your, whether you watch it on this, an iPad, a computer, or a monitor with smart TVs is going to be totally irrelevant. The cable box is done. We just bought a house, and the guy comes over we needed a cable, traditional cable, because I still watch cable, Newsmax and Fox and stuff. The guy goes, "What, a cable box?" He goes, "No, we don't even have those. You got to go pick one up yourself." "Well, what do you mean? You're a cable guy." He goes, "No, we don't do that." He goes, "Everybody streams now." The guy says he hasn't hooked up a cable box in days. I said, "Really? We're the only ones." I felt like I was from the Flintstones. So Fox makes a lot of money from that. But you're not wrong. Like, there is pressure from places like BlackRock that can buy up a lot and can buy up your stock. Mm-hmm. But if your brand and your value added, right, is, hey, we're going to be the conservative channel, then I'm sorry, but you got to do conservative stuff. I mean, their opinion part is conservative.
They got to leave New York.
Who owns it? Who owns Fox? I'm looking, it's 39% Murdoch. It's only 39% though. So who owns the other 50?
Well, it's publicly traded.
Someone super chatted and said, what if the historical period was pre-Civil War Southern Belle? So if you work at Fox News, show up and say you identify as, your gender is non-binary antebellum, and wear old pre-Civil War.
You'd be thrown out of there so fast.
They can't do that. This is the problem. Look, if they want to create these laws, all it takes is someone with the willingness to be like, let's see if, like, we'll play a game of chicken. Is Fox News. Look, Fox News is perfect for this because the people who work at MSNBC like what MSNBC does. The people who work at Fox clearly oppose, not all of them, but a lot of them, the ideology. Is Fox going to say, we will lose our audience and go out of business, or will we move? So it's like the pressure is on, man. If you work there, you can make the difference.
But I wonder, have they made a commitment ever since Tucker and I, departed from the network? Have they made a commitment to kind of become like a right of center network rather than what they were, thinking that that's where the money is? Because you got to remember, everyone who's tried that has failed. I could go through a list of probably 4 or 5 online outlets. It started as explicitly right, conservative, right leaning, who decided to play down you know what? Remember IJ Review was hot, man, when it started? They were doing these like nugget videos and Vine-like videos. They were hot. They're still around. Whether they're profitable, I don't know, but they were blowing up. They were doing right-leaning stuff. And then someone, I don't know who, pitched them this idea of, hey, let's play it down the middle. The problem with playing it down the middle is you just piss off both sides. And you got to understand, like, the politics now are very Manichaean. They're just, this is it. Like, the next fight is the end and the next election is the end. Whether that's true or not, I hope it isn't. Unfortunately, people feel that way.
It's not the middle. It's establishment. If you are someone like Jimmy Dore, who's very clearly a leftist, but if you're honest about the news.
Yeah, I love Jimmy Dore.
Exactly.
I played a clip of him. That's funny on my podcast today. It's hilarious.
Jimmy Dore will argue socialist economic points, and you'll be like, well, Jimmy, I think you're clearly wrong about that. And then you'll come to the issue of Epstein or Clinton or the banks, and you'll completely agree because he's honest.
Jimmy doesn't buy into the religion either.
Right.
Like the whole religion part, the ideology that goes along with it. It's like Jimmy's straight up about like the actual material conditions, which is more close to like original Marxism with what is it?
Class-based or?
Yeah, materialism. I forget the phrase that he used, but he was really focused on materialism. And Jimmy Dore does that. He doesn't get into the what basically boils down to like the almost the theology of the left, the trans stuff and the LGBT stuff and the basically the making it like a religious
you know what I think though the Fox problem is going to be too. The problem they're going to have is conservatives, right? I mean, I've been embedded in this movement a long time, over a decade of my life. Conservatives don't like to get toyed with. Believe me, I see it. Like conservatives will call out conservatives over nothing. Liberals don't have that problem. You realize like how dumb liberals are? I'm sorry, they're freaking imbeciles. You can lie to a liberal for 5 years about a pee-pee hoax, right? It's clearly bullshit. Like there was all of it. 5 years, Tim, 5 years. Imagine wasting. So Rachel Maddow probably does 190 shows a year before her new contract. Now she only works 1 day a week. So figure 190. She did 190 shows a year for almost 5 years on a story that is bullshit. How are you watching this? Like, what the? I just wasted hundreds of hours of my life. If you pulled that as a conservative, and it happens now.
It's a cult.
It's a freaking cult. It happened to me today. I did this interview with I was telling Megyn Kelly on Friday, and this lady. Stuff drives me crazy on Twitter. Like I'll respond to randos over nothing because I just get pissed off and I got a really like shit attitude. I just do. Some like random ladies like, I heard Dan Bongino and Megyn Kelly calling Ron DeSantis a backbencher. I'm done with these two. And they said Trump's tweets aren't a problem. I'm like, I answered her back. I'm like, did you even watch the show? Because I went back and watched the clip. I'm like, that's not what I said.
Yeah.
I said I supported Trump and we've got a great bench, including Ron DeSantis. That's not calling him a backbencher, you freaking idiot. Yeah. And it's like our people call our people out over stuff that didn't even happen. And we're so annoyed, like, you're not principled. And yet the left, you can stick it to them, lie to them, make up innumerable stories, and they will never give up. They'll tune in to Rachel Maddow tomorrow.
Yeah.
Her podcast kicks ass.
Yep.
I follow the numbers like you do. If you got caught lying about a major thing, I've got the skinny on Governor Andrew Cuomo. It's just coming down. It's explosive story. And for 5 years, and it turns out to be BS. No one watched Tim Pool again. But that's not what we do. It makes us better people. And I'm proud to be on the true side of the movement. And I agree with you. It's more anti-establishment than conservative or left. I totally get that. I'm vibing with you on that. But if you did the stuff lefties pull on their audience, you'd be done, man.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.